everybody, it's Fane with the Plain Truth Series 2.0. As much anticipation as there is on me exposing the guilty, I feel like that's secondary to my purpose here, to the purpose of my channel. When my MacBook cord died, it was like sparking and stuff, I had to order one off Amazon. So if you'd noticed, I hadn't been uploading videos or responding on the comments or following my social media because I had to order a new cord off Amazon. So therefore, in the few days that my Prime took to get my item here, I started thinking, I think we're skipping over some stuff here. And I feel like we need to pump the brakes and just start from the beginning. Okay, here you go. This is Smudgy. I have had her for 14 years. I love her so much. All right. So what I'm saying is that I realize we sort of need to stop, pump the brakes, and start at the beginning. So let's do that. Should we do that? Welcome. So we're getting ready for another pretty large, significant snowstorm according to the weather reports. So I'm sitting here in my beautiful New England farmhouse, and I'm just gonna start at the beginning. So let's start off in 1978. I was born to Charlene Lewis Hillock Billman Lewis. I don't know. She has been married and divorced more times than I can keep track of. Which, by the way, gives me a little bit of hope, because if someone's willing to commit to that, then I don't have to worry about nobody being willing to commit to me, because I'm a better person and I got my shit together and I have morals, ethics, and values. There's been a lot of mystery and a lot of rumors over my decades of who my actual birth father is. I was born to Charlene Lewis and resided in Royalston, Massachusetts, right across the driveway from a cemetery. That's another episode. So Charlene was basically just living her own life. Fucking because she wanted to, not using protection because she didn't like it, getting drunk, doing drugs. Children weren't a priority, they were a liability. And so I am the youngest of 4 children. Oldest is Sherry, and then Jeffrey was born, and then David were born, and then I were born. I don't think, as far as I know, there are any other siblings. It's probably entirely possible, but highly unlikely. So over the years, nobody would be straightforward with who my father were. I were told repetitively that the man on my birth certificate, Walter Hillock, was not actually my father, but because Charlene were married to Walter at the time, that's why his name were put on my birth certificate. When I were born, I were named Connie Hillock. And I found out later on why I was named that. It's a common thing for people to want to know, why did you name me that? How'd you pick my name? And so, yeah, I kind of was so am I named after our grandparents? Is there a historical value to my name? What is the backstory? I asked. I were told that I were named Connie because Walter was cheating on Charlene with a woman named Connie. And I've actually found traces of this on the internet. I think I even found out that Connie was Walter's first wife. So Charlene decided that she were going to name me Connie. So that way, every time I cried, I needed to be fed, I looked in his direction, Walter would be reminded of his mistakes. So I were named a name that would essentially make my supposed birth father despise me, be disgusted with me. So that was day one on Earth. Okay? For the first 4 years of my life, I lived with my biological family in Royalston, Massachusetts. My DCF record, on record with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, shows that my abuse began at 4 days old. I were taken home from the hospital, and 4 days later, I was brought back to the hospital because I had been sexually sodomized. That was the start of 4.5 years of repetitive abuse, rape, and violence at the hands of my mother and her boyfriends, other family members. It was a fucked up start. So here's Connie, and here's her first 4.5 years. Boom. Finally, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Child and Family Services sees fit to remove me from the home after there had been so many hospital reports, so many trips in and out of the emergency rooms for being encopretic, for having overdosed. Yes, my mother, Charlene, actually told my brother Jeffrey and I to go into the bathroom and eat all the candy out of the medicine cabinet. Now, I remind you, I left that home at 4.5 years old. So anything I'm telling you right now for me was 4.5 and younger. So she went and she loosened all the caps to all of the pill bottles in her medicine cabinet. And in her drunk cocaine stupor, she decides that she is going to actually tell Jeffrey and I to go eat all of the candy that she has left for us in the bathroom. Now, she starved us. So when we heard there was food, we were like, yes, yes. And in fact, it was candy. You know we're all over that. You know we're gonna eat that shit. So, yep, we did. Both of us rushed to the emergency room because my sister, Sherry, actually called the police, called the ambulance, called medic. So on the way to the hospital, my medical report shows that I am encopretic and I am dead. I died on the way to the hospital and they brought me back to life. I went in and out of consciousness for many hours. I had my stomach pumped with, I think they said charcoal, and I was given high doses of intravenous fluids for extreme dehydration. I had bruises and lacerations all over my body. There was evidence of me being sexually sodomized, and I had a black eye, and I had several bruises right here on the right side of my head. It was at that hospital in which one of the physicians decided to actually place another 51A report to raise her concern about my biological mom having the intentions of killing us. And so I think the way I understand it now, Jeffrey was just sort of oops, he wasn't supposed to take the pills too, but he did, and he was sick and he had to go to the hospital as well. My mother had actually physically beat and allowed others to physically beat and harm David, my older brother, to the point he were mentally and physically damaged permanently from her abuse. Now, when you were to ask her about this abuse, she's going to tell you, well, they didn't have those resources that they have now. I was so overwhelmed. And all I can say to that is, bitch, close your legs and get on birth control. There's no excuses. There's no rationalization at all. Thankfully, the physician at the hospital raised additional concern, which finally got us reviewed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they decided they had already taken David out of the home at this point because she was outwardly trying to kill him, making statements and physically doing things to show that she was trying to dispose of this life. They then decided that they were going to take me out of the home because she was doing the same things. She wanted to dispose of my life. I was a burden, a liability, and an expense. Isn't it a bummer when you want to party and your boyfriends want to fuck your infant daughter? And you're just like, well, I guess if it keeps the party going. I can remember one time in which I was so hungry that I snuck downstairs because there was a roll of Rolos on the bottom stair, and at the bottom of the stairs there was a sliding door that went in and out of the wall. Her bedroom was right here, Charlene's bedroom was here, and the living room was here. And I remember not having ate for like 4 or 5 days. I was so hungry, and I remember the Rolos were on those stairs, and I was dared by Sherry and Jeffrey to sneak down those stairs and get the Rolos so we could all eat. Jeffrey was always Charlene's favorite. He got favored, he got special treatment. He didn't have as much abuse. He didn't have the types of abuse, but he did witness abuse. So he's got his issues or whatnot, but I think I would have preferred maybe being Charlene's favorite so I didn't have to go through what I went. And I don't know what the abuse would be for me or what the trauma would be for me if I only had to watch my siblings be horribly abused repetitively instead of having to be one of those siblings myself who was horribly abused repetitively. That is my priority in my life, is to worry about myself. So the Rolos, I was sneaking down the stairs to get these Rolos, and I was like sneaking, and I'm like 2 stairs away, you guys. I'm 2 fucking stairs away. I did it. Not one floorboard creaked, not one sound was made. I think I can even remember holding my breath on those stairs. Just as I'm going to step down to the next stair that the Rolos are on, I accidentally kicked the Rolos, which, as you know, there are tubes, so they're going to roll, and it went bloom, 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 and it hit that sliding door at the bottom, and that's all it took. Charlene had one of her boyfriends over that night. They were doing cocaine and partying and drinking, and Charlene whipped that door open so fast, grabbed me by my hair, picked me up, threw me into the living room wall, walked over by the record player, picked me up, and then brought me into the bedroom in which she and her boyfriend hog-tied me naked, put a bar of soap in my mouth, and said, if you're so hungry, eat your way out of that, and left me tied up next to her bed, the left side of her bed. So if you're looking at the bed, over here between the wall and the bed, left me there for 10 hours in my own piss and shit. Beat the fuck up, bleeding. Yeah, he had sex with me a few times. And she let this shit happen. It's all in my DCF records. So I don't have to go, oh my God, did that happen? Am I remembering this wrong? Because right before I gave birth to my daughter, I had actually requested my DCF record. So we're talking like over 20 years ago. And I read that shit. And I was horrified that a lot of the things that I actually remembered legitimately were there somewhere in the record on paper. I'm like, holy shit. How am I alive? I mean, I guess that's kind of the primary question that at that point I looked in the mirror and I like looked in the mirror and I'm like, girl, how are you alive? You poor girl. If this were some kind of Lifetime movie and shit, I would just be tissue box crying, wanting to give you a hug. In fact, I do want to give you a hug. So yes, my biological family is extremely fucked up. Jeffrey tried committing suicide. None of his friends were there for him. I found him. I got him medical attention. I let him be checked out to my house. I had to go to court because his girlfriend accused me of stealing their car. Long story, I didn't steal a car. The state police gave me the keys to the car and told me to drive it to the hospital, which I were doing. And en route to the hospital, I got pulled over at gunpoint because Jeffrey's girlfriend, Becky, owned the car and called it in stolen because her and Jeffrey were arguing. So that happened. Then the next day I have to go to court, and Jeffrey doesn't go to court in my honor. He doesn't go to court to tell them what was going on. Instead, he stays on the phone begging Becky to take him back. He was at my then boyfriend's place of business, and literally the whole time he was standing in front of customers begging his girlfriend to take him back, not to fix what she did to me, because she knew I were driving the vehicle. She drove by me on the way to me driving to the hospital and called the police. So she knew I were driving it. That destroyed my relationship with Jeffrey. If I'm going to be the only person there for you, and you're going to be so selfish and narcissistically minded to not even say thank you, not to have appreciation, or not to defend me or anything. I dropped him off at his foster, because he had a foster family, but they never adopted him. Her name was Gail. And I dropped him off at Gail's house, and literally we're all sitting around the table having like tea, talking about it, making sure Jeffrey's okay. And Gail looks at me and says, "You realize you could have killed him?" I'm like, how? I picked him up after he overdosed on the drugs. He wanted to go to his friend's house, which I took him there. He started overdosing, like having the overdose, it started showing when we got to his friend's house, which was way up in the hills with no service. None of his friends, Jason, nor his wife, nor anybody in that house, nobody would actually call for medics for him. I had to go running through a stranger's house, because I'd never been there before, looking for their cordless phone to call 911 for my brother. I found it. I called 911. I got him in the ambulance. I got him help. I saved his life. He wouldn't be here if it weren't for me. We're sitting at Gail's table, and he's like not saying anything or doing anything. He's all busted up and ass hurt over Becky screwing Dan, which he was still in denial about. Probably still is. Anyway, and Gail looks at me and is like, you could have killed him. And I look at Jeff, waiting for Jeff to be like, what are you talking about? She's the only one that got me medical attention. She's the only one that was there for me. All you guys did was put a Facebook post on. It was some stupid fucking shit. The kind of shit that they're not even together anymore, and so water's thicker than blood, I guess. But needless to say, that destroyed my relationship with Jeffrey, and I don't have any respect for him. I'm like, ugh. And then Sherry, I've tried several times to have a relationship with, but for some reason, drugs are more important to her than her health, her family, her future. And in fact, a couple months ago, I was trying to ask around for medical information. Like, do you guys know who my father is? How can I go about finding out? I'm having severe medical issues. I have been asked by several of my medical providers if I have any genetic information or any biological medical information, and I don't have enough. So she just moved back to Massachusetts, so I got a hold of her, and things are okay. We were supposed to go see her August 30th of last year, so 2019, and something didn't feel right to me, and then my daughter started a job, so it just didn't work out. But she was like, hey, just so you know, Richard, I guess that's her boyfriend or roommate, doesn't want no drama, so if you're gonna start drama, don't come here. And I thought that was like the strangest thing for her to say, because they're the ones that always start the drama. Why would I go out of my way to drive an hour and a half to come see you to start drama? Like, what? So it all made more sense to me a couple weeks later when I got the diagnosis, and I contacted Sherry, and I'm like, oh my God, holy shit. I got just this diagnosis. It's pretty bad news. Do you know if this runs in our family? And all of a sudden, she started repeating rumors that had come up many times in my generations being here, or decades of being here, which is I'm supposedly a product of incest. Supposedly, my mother slept with her stepbrother or uncle and had me. That was a huge family rumor. I mean, I had heard this rumor so many goddamn times, I almost started to believe this shit. I thought, well, maybe that's why I have so many medical problems. But no. So Sherry then, back in like September, October time last year, 2019, started repeating the rumor that I'm a product of incest and that my father is Ray Andrews, who Andrews is like paternal family or maternal, mom, MP. Okay, so started repeating this rumor that my father was Ray Andrews, who is like a stepbrother maternally from my grandfather's first marriage. I guess she also went along to say that all of the Andrews men are rapists and like severely fucked up psychologically, psychopathically fucked up. And she warned me not to be in touch with them. She warned me that they're all rapists and I could be asking for trouble. So I decided I'm going to try that 23andMe ancestry health stuff. I'm going to do it. And I never wanted to because I know I have very mixed feelings about what the government does with this stuff and who has my DNA and what they're actually doing this stuff for. I have lived for 40 years not knowing who my father were. The rumors were starting up again because Sherry was telling me this stuff and nobody in my biological family would talk about it. So I did the 23andMe health and ancestry kit. And I was so dehydrated when I gave my sample, I wasn't even sure it was going to work. But I found some shit out. I did it because I wanted health information more so than the ancestry stuff, but all of it is fascinating to me. I was so dehydrated when I were giving my sample. I were just so worried it weren't going to come out right. And then I put it in the mailbox on a wicked cold day, not realizing it was a holiday and it was going to sit in that mailbox overnight. I think they received the results on November 6th or something. Oh, I remember what day it was. It was November 22nd of 2019. I get a notification that my results are back. I have been waiting for this. My brother also did a kit. So that would give paternal information, phenotype, something or other. Anyway, so because other family members have done this kit, I found out who my father were. I wasn't even expecting that out of 23andMe. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting maybe you're predisposed to these genetic health things. By the way, you come from Asia. I'm joking. I don't look Asian. I am Native American. So anyway, I'm rolling through the information and it's a lot. And I'm rolling through it and I'm scrolling through it and I'm like, oh my God. Oh shit. Bummer. This kind of sucks because I'm not getting really any helpful health information. So suddenly I'm scrolling and it says surnames. So a surname is somebody's last name. And it says your genetic surnames are as follows. Your maternal surname is Lewis. I knew that. That's my mom's maiden name. And it says your paternal surname is Hillock. So the man on my birth certificate actually is my biological father, but hold up, this man, Walter, has denied me my entire life. I had one meeting with him where I brought a photo album up to New Hampshire to meet him, and he blew me off the first time, and then the second time we rescheduled, I brought my photo album, I dressed up. I mean, I looked so beautiful because I'm under the impression that this is my father. Basically looked at me like a piece of meat. He stole my photo album and never talked to me again. Over the years, that's when I was still in high school. So then I asked around over the years, like, who's my dad? Like, I want to know who my dad is. I want to know who my dad is. When I contacted Sherry last fall, and she was like, the rumors. She talks to Walter every day or week. There's pictures of her and Walter on Facebook where he's like, this is my daughter, here's Sherry, here's Sherry and I love her so much. Right? And then there's pictures on Charlene's Facebook where she's like, this is my daughter, and this is her dad. And then there's pictures of the three of them where they're like, look at us. And so I'm like, what the fuck? So I was born to Charlene, and we now know that my father is actually the guy on my birth certificate, Walter. We know that Walter has disowned me, shunned me, if you will. And doesn't want to be my father. And Sherry was sexually abused and physically abused, but I guess it wasn't enough for her to disconnect from Charlene or Walter. I guess it wasn't something that traumatized her soul to the point where she wanted what was probably best for her, knowing how bad her drug habits are. She asked me to get her meth. Yeah, she asked me to get her meth last year. I was like, what? So like, I'm driving around, I'm at the post office, and she's like asking me this on the phone. And I'm put her on speakerphone, and I'm like Googling what the is meth. I thought it was maybe like a new form, like, you know how they have dabs of weed, then they have vapes of weed, then they have flower of weed, they have edibles of weed. I was thinking like maybe this is some new form of pot. She asked me to get her methadone. Like, I think it's something like crack or something like that, but I was like, oh my God, this is 2019, this shit's still happening. When I was like 15 years old, she called me at 3 a.m. because she's like arrested in Florida, and she's like, oh my God, can you ask your adopted parents to please like bail me out? I'm pregnant. I'm like, why are you in jail? She's like, prostitution and drugs. I'm like, what the fuck is prostitution? And what do you mean drugs? Just tell them your doctor gave you a prescription and you left the bottle at home, like, and then go get the bottle and show them. She's like, no, you don't understand. It's like hardcore drugs. And I'm like, oh my God. I didn't know what to do. I was very sheltered in my adopted life. I went to private school. I did not have access to drugs. I did not learn about drugs until I was 16. Last year, Sherry's... Oh, and by the way, I did ask Walter, and he said he's definitely not your dad. And I'm like, so you're telling me that he's not my dad. He's telling me he's not my dad. Nobody will tell me who my dad is. And then on 11/22 of 19, I find out Walter is indeed my dad. Do you know how abusive it is and how manipulative it is to invalidate your daughter, to disown your daughter? You're worthless to me, or I don't want you, or you're not relevant. To still be doing this, like, even up until last year, like literally 5 months ago, my biological dad was still trying to disown me. I find that all of these characters in my biological family seem to be selfish, narcissistic, self-centered, people who want to act like they're victims, they couldn't do any better, but then never try. I was severely raped and beaten and abused for the first 4.5 years of my life. Every day. I have watched my mom date men who killed dogs in our basement and made us watch. I have been beaten, raped, left outside in the middle of winter for dead. I've had overdoses because my mom overdosed us or gave us medication or put us in a position to have access to medication that she knew would kill us. She had no regard for my life. She did not care about my well-being or my safety. She would not have died for me at all when she didn't want to have sex with her boyfriends. I guess it was okay for her to let them have sex with me or my sister. Very fucked up and disgusting. Very fucked up and disgusting. So I vowed when I grew up, I would never, every single day of my life, I knew that if I had children, I would protect them. I would die for them. I would defend them. I would honor them. And I might not be perfect, but I'm not letting my kids be raped or touched or be abused or sodomized or put in danger or put in harm if I could do anything about it. I did not have a manual to be a parent, and so I didn't have a lot to go on, but I knew I was going to be a good mom. And I am. And I don't ever recall a point in my mothering, being a mom, where I felt like I had failed. I was a devoted mother. I stayed home every day with my daughter. I was the one who everybody would drop their kids off at my house so they could go out and party and like still be selfish and not fully indulge in their parenting. Parent alienation syndrome began infiltrating my family at the hands of my adopted mother and father, Michael and Marcia Powers, and my child's father, Johnny Chapin, and his girlfriends, Jessica, his other baby mama, Carla Harlow. We'll get into that in other episodes. I come here just to let you know that you don't have to be a statistic. I broke the barriers of being a statistic by 1,000,000. Nobody harmed my daughter. She wasn't raped, she wasn't beaten, she wasn't abused. She did not go without food. She did not go without clothes. She did not have to live on the street. She was never put in compromising positions. And if so, she were putting herself in those positions. And it's not like I'm like, oh, I don't want to have sex tonight, so, there's my children, like Charlene. I never got into drugs like Sherry. I never got into self-pity like Jeff. I never wanted to be a statistic, and I'm not. I'm a good mom. I'm a great mom. I'm not a perfect mom. I'm an imperfectly perfect person, and I'm okay with that. I am very okay with that. When I look in the mirror, I love what I see. And it's okay if you, looking into this TV, monitor, screen, don't love what you see. Don't like what you hear. I'm not here to please. I am here because I am a person who deserves honor, who deserves respect, compassion, safety, all of those and more. And everybody who comes here for a different purpose. My purpose, personally, to putting my time, effort, energy, and resources into this channel is to be able to enable relation and relate by enabling. Plenty of us out there have been traumatized, and plenty of us out there have been invalidated, discounted, ignored, silenced. The list goes on and on.